My gosh. That was something to see last night. I mean, JD won it hands down, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely, positively, hands down. But what I'm most struck by is just some of those moments where the moderators had to cut his mic because it seems very symbolic of where we are in this day and age. And I say that as I watched today Elise Stefanik move forward with her case to try and get Letitia James disbarred from the court. And by the way, this is what needs to happen, you see, because Letitia James went way out over her skis in a really, frankly, kind of disgusting, aggressive way. And she should pay the price, right? Because that should just ethically not be allowed. It should not have happened in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to get to that. And I'm going to also remind you that when you have somebody like Elise Stefanik on your trail, good luck. Okay, remember what happened with the woman who ran Harvard University, Claudine Gay. She seemed kind of untouchable. And then Elise Stefanik got in there. Elise Stefanik, who went to Harvard herself. Well, it was sort of game over at that point. And I think that that's just important for everyone to remember who you're up against here, because this woman does not mess around. And we like that about her. She's got a big future, actually, I think, in the GOP, within the Republican Party, because she's willing to kind of get out there in front of these things. And that's really, really, really important. So we got a lot to get to. I want to get to that. I want to get to some of those highlights, the moments from the debate that were so striking, because it really told me that you're dealing with two different kinds of people here. You've got one that's actually extraordinarily smart and one that is just a politician. And so I'm not going to make too much out of this because I just think that it was sort of obvious going into it. I wasn't that sort of anticipatory, other than that we knew JD would effectively wipe the floor with Timmy. And that's indeed what happened. And by the way, it wasn't easy because he had the odds stacked against him, with both the moderators clearly being in a very sort of Timmy Walsh camp, right? Anyway, we begin today on Stefanik. Elise Stefanik is going after Letitia James, and this is a big, big deal because Elise does not mess around. We have only to look at what happened at Harvard University with Claudine Gay, the president there, that everybody was so excited about. But you know what? Elise got into the mix, and suddenly she was gone. Oh, so was the UPenn lady. So was the woman over at MIT. So Elise doesn't mess around. And today she came out very aggressively against Letitia James, demanding what I've said now. Since when did we first do this? Like Friday or Monday? I've been all over this story because this woman needs to get disbarred, and I think she's actually going to be disbarred. I mean, look, I spent a lot of time, 6 weeks on the ground, covering the Duke lacrosse story. Remember those poor kids that were framed by a DA? That was a totally rabid DA, and I see a lot of similarities. I mean, there are obviously different cases, of course, but a lot of similarities between what we see from Letitia James and what we saw down in North Carolina and Raleigh, in Durham with Mike Nifong. So this is a rabid DA, but she's met her match in Elise Stefanik, the representative out of New York, who today filed this letter saying to the New York Committee on Professional Standards. And interestingly, she's writing this, I believe, as an attorney herself, not necessarily as a representative. I don't see it on congressional paper. I don't see Representative Elise Stefanik. This is a very sort of humble letter there, but sending it to the committee on professional standards, because this is basically to the New York bar. I mean, you cannot have somebody who is so politically motivated running the show and going after politicians. She writes, New York Attorney General Letitia James violated the rules of professional conduct by conducting a biased investigation and prosecution of President Trump and by attacking President Trump through extrajudicial statements during a trial. This is all according to the letter, which, by the way, guys, is like 64 pages long. So I printed out the whole thing. I read it. We get some of the highlights here. Quote, in just the first 5 weeks of the trial that began in October 2023, before I stopped counting, Ms. James made over 50 inappropriate and prejudicial comments on social media. And she cited 53 posts showing James's bias during the trial, which was out there, right, for everybody to consume. This complaint respectfully requests that the Attorney Grievance Committee conduct an investigation and issue an immediate interim suspension, disbar Ms. James as an attorney and counselor at law, or suspend Ms. James. And then she's asking that they eventually suspend her altogether for real. So that she wants it happening right now in the here and now, even if it has to be temporary. And then she wants them following through with a full-on removal of Letitia James's law license. And it makes all the sense in the world, right? You think about those 53 comments that Letitia James made on social media, and you think about these little video clips. I got them here for you because we need to take a little walk down memory lane to remember how bad this woman really was and why she totally deserves to get disbarred.
He's called me venomous. We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City. He's called me disgraceful. Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president and an illegitimate member of the United States Supreme Court. He's called me radical. Listen, yes. We know he's crazy. Yes. We know he doesn't have a sound mind. Yes. We know he's out of control. Yes. We know he's losing it. We know his days are numbered and we will come together. He's called me a racist. We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale.
Okay, this is all going to come back to haunt her, mark my words, in a really massive, significant way. And as I said, you got Elise Stefanik, the representative from New York, on the case now. And by the way, terrific pedigree. And she's like Harvard Law. And it was quite something watching her go after Claudine Gay. Now she's going after Letitia James, who, by the way, campaigned on this very thing. It is so fundamentally wrong and so unethical.
I've taken on powerful interests like developers. I've taken on legislators. I've taken on landlords. I've taken on powerful interests in the city of New York because I believe in a good fight. And right now, what we need is someone who understands that you should not be afraid, not be fearful of Donald Trump. We should take him down. We should sue him all the way to bankruptcy. We should investigate his business interests. We should investigate his business holdings. We should investigate whether or not why he was once in debt and now in a position to purchase all of this property. We can do that because I've been trained to do that, and I will do that at the same time knowing the Office of Attorney General and its powers and its responsibilities and its duties. My name is Letitia James, and I plan on being the next Attorney General of the state of New York. God bless you and thank you.
Okay, so here's the problem. Letitia James completely violated sort of this code of ethics that you're supposed to subscribe to because she decided to try and manipulate and use the law in such an aggressive way and in such a personal way as to go after one individual. She took a law that's on the books that's designed to prevent consumers from basically getting fleeced, and she decided to wedge herself into the middle of a transaction between Donald Trump and Deutsche Bank, his banker. So he wanted to borrow money. And this is what banks do. They're in the business of lending. Thank you very much. And when you have a corporate client, you lend to the corporate client, you lend to the corporation. In this case, they're lending to Donald Trump's company. And what is he using as collateral? He's using Mar-a-Lago, he's using Trump Tower, and he says, well, they're worth this. And there are all kinds of disclosures on it saying, hey, Deutsche Bank, do your due diligence. If you don't think they're worth that, then basically you shouldn't make the loan, right? We're all big boys at the table in a private financial transaction. So Deutsche Bank decided, yeah, you know what? This is a risk worth taking. And guess what? They were well rewarded for that risk. They made lots of money. Everybody made lots of money. Nobody has any damages. Nobody's coming forth with any damages. And yet Letitia James decides to insert herself into this whole equation through a consumer protection statute, executive law 6312, which has never been used before, ever, in any kind of case like this. And this is something that the judges kept bringing up as the appeals court is hearing this. Anyway, just interesting timing. So again, Stefanik saying, wait a second, this woman needs to get disbarred. And it's all happening as the appeals court is looking at this case. And they're going to come forward, and I'm going to tell you what. You know what, guys? I'm going to make a prediction right now, in the here and now. This court case is going to be thrown out. It is going to be completely reversed. You're going to see all of these judges, it's 5 appeals court judges, appellate judges, they're going to say, no can do. And guess what? Elise Stefanik and her complaint there, to the New York Professional Committee, that's going somewhere. It's going somewhere. I just want to give you a little glimpse. Some of you have seen this clip before if you watch the Trish Regan show. Some of you are just joining us for the first time. Hey, remember to subscribe. Make sure that you subscribe, share, like, make a comment, all that good stuff. This is a live show, so I see what you're saying. Make sure you also hit the bell, because if you don't hit the bell, you won't know when I am here live. And it varies. It varies. We're here live every day, but make sure you hit the bell. So I want to go right now, if you would, to the sound from the attorneys there, the judges, I should say, at the appellate court. You've got Judith Vale for the state. So this is the woman who's representing Tish James. Okay, and she's coming forward for the state, and she gets just shut down like in the first 5 seconds. Take a peek.
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated...
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Well, several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
Well, maybe I'll take that first, Your Honor.
Unbelievable. So like all 5 judges. Okay, and look, it's an appeals court, anything could happen, but I'm telling you, just listening to this and reading through the transcript, there's just no way that she's going to get away with this. And this is what we were all saying in the beginning. I mean, for goodness sakes, Donald Trump was saying it, right? Donald Trump was out there when they came forward with the, whatever it was, 300 and some odd million, and then it became, before you know it, nearly $500 million. You're talking 400 and what was it, 68? I mean, wow, just nearly $500 million that they're finding him for this. This is bonkers. This is third world banana republic stuff. And yes, Tish James needs to be disbarred. You know who else needs to be disbarred, ladies and gentlemen? Arthur Erdogan, the judge that came up with this wild penalty.
New York State judge just ruled, and he's crooked as you can get. And a lot of people expected something like this, but not for the amount. But this is a very dishonest man. This is a man that's been overturned already on this case 4 times. But a crooked New York State judge just ruled that I have to pay a fine of $355 million for having built a perfect company. Great cash, great buildings, great everything. It affects New York. It's mostly talking about New York, where we have a totally corrupt attorney general. She campaigned on the fact that I will get Trump, I will get Trump. Everybody's seen it, Tish James. They've all seen it. Well, we'll be appealing, but more important than that, this is Russia, this is China, this is the same game. All comes out of the DOJ, it all comes out of Biden. It's a witch hunt against his political opponent, the likes of which our country has never seen before. You see it in third world countries, banana republics, but you don't see it here. So I just want to say this. You build a great company. There was no fraud. The banks all got their money, 100%. They love Trump. They testified that Trump is great customer, one of our best customers. They testified beautifully. And the judge knows that. He's just a corrupt person. And we knew that from the beginning. We knew it right from the beginning because he wouldn't give it to the commercial division. This judge thought Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, and it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times.
And by the way, what the heck is the judge getting in there trying to decide what it's worth, or Tish James for that matter? By the way, it was a $489 million fraud prosecution and verdict. Woo! Okay, so these guys are in a little bit of trouble because according to the attorneys, the judges at the appellate court, one of them said, quote, "I'm sorry, what's being described sounds an awful lot like a potential commercial dispute between private actors." This is according to Justice John Higgett. And then he mused that the AG is, quote, going into an area that wasn't intended for her jurisdiction. And then he said that the court may need to impose guardrails on the AG's power. I think that needs to happen. It needs to happen fast. Justice David Freeman agreeing with him, saying, quote, you've got two really sophisticated parties in which no one has lost any money. In other words, normally, any cases that come forward would actually be about bilking customers. So what is she doing? And why did she tie up all his time? And is this not election interference? Like on steroids? By the way, it's not just her. It's Fani Willis. You get the cases going on in DC. It's one after another. One after another. And she was willing to take every single thing from him. Remember, she was going to go after Trump Tower itself gleefully.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Tish James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
She was like chomping at the bit to do that, right? That was going to be like the icing on the cake. Well, guess what? That's why we have appellate courts. And that's why appellate courts and the justices there are now looking at how they can put some guardrails around a crazy aggressive AG. Well, I'm going to go back to what Elise is doing. Representative Stefanik saying not only do you need to put guardrails, but you need to make an example of her. You need to suspend her license immediately. She needs to be disbarred. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I feel very strongly about this. I feel that we are really in danger right now, ladies and gentlemen, of being at a tipping point where we're turning increasingly into Russia, Stalin's Russia, USSR. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. I mean, this is not who we are as a country. It's never who we want to be as a country. So we need appellate courts for this reason, and we need to make sure that there are some guardrails against overly rabid district attorneys trying to make a political career out of all this. Just disgusting, disgusting stuff. I mean, you think about the state we're in, it makes me like gold even more. It's a great diversification tool. And we love our friends over at American Heart for Gold, one of the sponsors here at the Trish Regan Show. All the more reason to go to these guys. If you're looking to diversify into gold, you can, in addition to the great fact that they're supporting this show, which we love them for, you can get up to $15,000 worth of free silver if you have a qualifying offer. So up to $15,000 in free silver. Silver's actually been up lately. Call 1-844-495-1115. You can text Trish, my name, to 65532, or just go to Trish Loves Gold, trishlovesgold.com today, because gold is one of those things that's really going to help you. It's going to help you in terms of your diversification strategy. It's going to help you when the dollar's getting crushed and you're dealing with all this inflation. And it's going to help you as the government continues to print money, which we know they will. It's also going to help you in light of the craziness that we're seeing, certainly out of DC. The craziness that we're seeing out of some members of, the legal team, like we saw in New York. Alvin Bragg's another one. This is going to go to the appellate court too. I'm telling you, these are going to get turned down one after another. And then you're going to say to yourself, well, is it too late? Because if he doesn't actually win the election, can he go back and say, well, I was stuck in court all that time with Alvin Bragg and Judge Mershon, or I was stuck in court with Arthur Erdogan and Letitia James? What about Jack Smith? My gosh. Okay. I want to turn to the debate last night, because did you see what J.D. Vance's performance did for the prediction markets surrounding the expectation over who is going to win this election? Wow. I was watching them in real time last night. I tweeted some of them out from our friends over at Polymark, another great sponsor of the Trish Regan Show. But here's what I want to show you, because yesterday on the show, or maybe the day before, we were looking at a 2-point spread. Donald Trump was down actually compared to Kamala Harris. And now look at this. The edge goes to Trump, because if you look at the volume, just barely going to Trump here. We're seeing 50% there to Trump. You're seeing 50% to Kamala Harris. But again, this is real money that's being put at work. I should point out that you cannot actually make any wagers in the prediction markets in the US or in countries that don't allow this, but they're super interesting to watch, right? They're super interesting to watch because as I was taking a look at things last night, I got a kick out of it. I got a kick out of it because J.D. Vance was climbing and climbing and climbing, the expectation that he would win the day. So in fact, friends were like sending these to me. Did you see what's happening in Polymarket? Did you see what's happening in Polymarket? I'm like, oh my gosh. So J.D. going into it looked like he was going to win because, you know, he just kind of set himself well. And then all of a sudden you started to see it shift a little bit. And it looked like, Timmy might be making a comeback. And then sure enough, the betting markets, or I should say prediction markets, started switching back again. So fascinating to see, really and truly, because this is real-time money going to work. Check it out. They're open 24/7, so you can kind of get a read on things. And they have prediction markets for everything. It's not just the presidential race, although that's certainly an interesting one to watch, but you can see what people are expecting in terms of the Fed or, say, in crypto prices. They might even have one. I think they should have one on when exactly Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are going to break up. Anyway, there's a prediction market out there. It's called Polymarket. Super cool because they use crypto. I'm talking blockchain technology from Ethereum in order to do this. It's really neat stuff. I was keeping an eye on it there last night. But the other thing I would say is overall in the polls, this is the one that I like most recently. I do think that North Carolina actually, especially in light of the lack of resources that this administration is providing to North Carolina and in kind of a big time of need, they could be off on North Carolina and Nevada. I'd be surprised to see Harris actually up in Nevada. I think that everything that Trump has promoted there, especially in terms of no taxes on tips, really resonates with the voters in Nevada. But I'm encouraged to see Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, all up theoretically going to Trump. And then this would be the map that you would see. If you look at Real Clear Politics, you're also seeing that the advantage goes to Trump right now. So all of these polls are starting to catch up. I think that you're still seeing a lot of closeness, so it's still kind of hard to predict what's going to happen other than, well, can we go with Trish's intuition because she's been right, like on everything. Sorry, not to brag or anything, but yeah, everybody was like, there's no way he's going to win in 2016. And I'm like, hey, don't count him out, because you really need to understand exactly how people feel, and people are not encouraged with what they're seeing going on right now. We need a lot of changes, a whole lot of sweeping changes. And, I want to just get at what happened last night. Again, JD was fantastic, and we don't need to reiterate the whole thing. I would say that at times it got like a little dense and a little bit wonky. That's okay. We need to have dense, wonky conversations. And there was a little less sort of name calling and that kind of thing. Except the attitude that we got from the moderators. And then that may have been the most exciting moment of the night when the moderators suddenly felt like they were the second grade school teachers and they were going to shut JD down because they didn't agree with what he had to say. Remember that moment? Again, you get the second grade school teachers moving in saying, we don't like what you're saying. We're better than you. They promised him they wouldn't be fact-checking throughout the night, except, well, apparently they couldn't help themselves. And so then this little moment ensued.
But thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn now to the economy. Thank you.
Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws.
It went on a little bit longer, and just to describe it to you, she's like, we have so much to get to. And at some point, they allowed the other guy, Timmy, to come in and say something. And then they realized, okay, well, this is looking bad. And so you had Vance come back in, and then they shut down the mics. And so you just heard Vance's voice in the background. He's trying to describe this because actually it turns out he was right. She was wrong on this. And it's nuanced, to say the least. I mean, and it's very specific in terms of this particular category of how immigrants are being labeled, if you would. And instead of allowing him to do this, she just shut it down, took off his mic, and then had this smug comment. And, thank you for telling us how a bill is made. It was just really kind of inappropriate. And you could just kind of feel the bias, feel the loathing there in the room. The moderators really didn't have a lot of respect for Vance. But what I think that he actually showed overall is that, one, he's lied a lot in the past. I mean, we knew that about his military experience, right? And then it came up regarding his trip to China. He said he was there in Tiananmen Square, or in China at the time that, that tragedy happened in 1989. It was in June. It turns out he actually wasn't there till August. So that wasn't quite exactly correct. And he's been caught in that lie. He was asked about it, and he didn't have sort of the facility with words to get around it. So he just kind of admitted that he had lied. I mean, this is sort of an amazing thing. There are two sort of highlights of the night. I mean, that and the kind of friends that he keeps, which we won't go into. I'm like, is this a cognitive moment? Buddy, are you like another Biden? Or do we have to worry about what you're saying? Anyway, he here talked about that time he was in China. Listen.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protest, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
Oh, really? He learned a lot about what needs to be in governance here? Gee, great. Glad you're learning from China. Scary. Quick reminder, again, one of our great sponsors, American Hartford Gold. You can text Trish to 65532 for up to $15,000 worth of free silver. You can call them at 1-844-495-1115, 1-115-449-1115. Again, text Trish, my name, to 65532. I mean, no one thought he won this. No one. In fact, when you look at the mainstream media, they also were quite negative on his performance. I want to go to what CNN had to say, because CNN was not impressed. They're blaming it on lack of preparation, the fact that he hasn't been doing any media interviews. They could have coached him, I guess, right? If they had only gone on with Dana Bash and Jake Tapper a little bit more, maybe Timmy Waltz would have done a little bit better a job. Here we go.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here on
I
Waltz's
think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe, yeah.
He had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say that he didn't listen and said when J.D. Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind. I think the lack of interviews that he has done with national media, with local media, it showed. He needed more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
Yeah. So that's why, right? Oh, it's just who's better at public speaking. Forget about the fact that one is a politician and one actually has a brain inside his head. I mean, I look at Waltz and I'm actually concerned. I'm concerned about our country because this is a guy who maybe is just a full-on true communist, and that's why he doesn't own anything, including so much as a mortgage. So he doesn't own his house. He doesn't own one share, not one share of equity in a company, so he's not into stocks. I mean, it's a little strange, right? He's made six figures for 20 some odd years, and yet he doesn't own anything. I mean, I'm not saying, you got to be a zillionaire. I'm just saying, be a little responsible with your money. He's either one of two things. He's either a total communist who wants to go the way of China, or he's actually really that lacking in his sophistication. I think he is a communist, and I think he does lack sophistication as well. So it's a little bit of a double whammy, which is quite terrifying. Who's not a communist? Yours truly, right here on this show. In fact, I'm going to encourage you again to take a look at 76 Research, 76research.com. That's my company that I started with a dear friend who's brilliant and has been on Wall Street for 20 some odd years, picking stocks, running billions of dollars. And I was like, wait a second, we need to do this for everyday folks. And so we started something called 76 Research, 76research.com. Go there and look at the model portfolios, because just check out, this is the income builder portfolio, median stock return 15% versus the S&P for 3 months ending 8/29/24. You get stock 1 up 26%, stock 2 up 22%, stock 3 up 20%, and so it goes on. And so really, 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 I think this is an important time for everybody to remember just exactly what we're up against, but you want to be invested. I mean, you just need to be invested, because this crew, don't rely on them, frankly, for anything. Promise me, right? Like, they're not going to be there to help and to try and kind of, massage things as you get older via Social Security or whatever that is. I mean, I don't even know if that's going to be there. So take some responsibility yourself. You can invest so easily. Somebody needs to tell Tim Waltz that, just with your bank account, usually they have 0 fee trades. And you can get into some really interesting, like basic stuff, right? I'm going to give you a little basic primer, like S&P 500 index funds, that kind of thing. But if you actually want to be in individual stocks, that's where you need a little bit more focus and concentration. That's where Rob and I can come in. Again, 3 different portfolios right there for you, plus the 76 report. So go check it out. 76research.com, you guys. It's like $9.95. You can get it for $1 if you use code word $1 for the first 2 months. And you can cancel anytime, so no harm, no foul. But that's the 76 report. And then the key is to get the portfolios, if you would, right? There's 3 different portfolios, and I think you can add them on for like $22 a month or something like that. So good deal. Make sure you do it, again, because those are numbers that you want to see on the screen. But we're going in kind of a crazy direction here, and I really do hope that Trump's able to pull through. I mean, I think for our First Amendment, if nothing else, when you watch what happened there with Margaret Brennan and J.D. Vance, I think it speaks volumes about where we are as a nation in terms of our actual freedoms of speech. So I'm going to leave it there. We're going to resume the show tomorrow. It is great to see so many familiar faces. Great to have you here. And we will continue our live discussion tomorrow.